Welcome back to Epilogues, Unpacking the Weekly Haftorah. You are listening to Rabbi Yaakov Trump. This week we're going to be learning the Haftorah of Parshas Shoftim. This is the fourth Haftorah of Nechemta, of comfort. It is to be found in Yeshayahu Perek Nun Aleph Pasuk Yud Beis to Perek Nun Beis Pasuk Yud Beis. It is a total of 24 psukim. Let's take a look at it in pieces and then consider some broader points to ponder. The first few psukim from Pasuk Yud Beis to Tezayin deals with HaKadosh Baruch Hu describing that He is the comforter of Israel. Anochi hu menachemchem. I'm going to be your comforter. Hashem reminds Yeshayahu that He'll comfort them and him and the tzaddikim that they have little to worry about. He tells them they should not worry about the humans who will wither and disappear, all the terrible oppressors, the Hamas Hametzik. He describes how people forget Hashem's salvation and they worry about the coming siege, but the siege will not come because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be there to protect them. He describes how the exiled one will no longer wander and the deathly ill will no longer die, and asks them, why is it that you are worried? Why is it that you're concerned? HaKadosh Baruch Hu plants the Torah in our mouths as He protects us and He returns to Zion, to Tzion, when all the nations will declare, Ami Ata, you are my nation. A few just a point to ponder is, what is the context of this statement? Why is Hashem making this statement? So it requires us to actually reverse a paragraph in the Navi, in Yeshayahu. The previous paragraph actually describes a question or a statement made by Yeshayahu, where he is turning to Hashem and says, it is time for you to get up. Uri liv shi'oz zroya Hashem uri kimei kedem. Wake up. It is time for you to save, to bring about a salvation for Israel. The response to that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming and saying, I will be menachemchem, which is, I'm going to be your redeemer and your comforter, which is the beginning of our Haftorah as well. It's worthwhile noticing over here is that who is it that Yeshayahu was addressing there? It's in a feminine term. The Malbim explains that Israel is arguing with Hashem, saying that Geula should come soon, and Hashem is saying that we aren't deserving of it yet. There's a famous story told in the community, the large Jewish community in Eastern Europe of Brisk, where they initially wanted to have the Beis HaLevi, Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik Zecher Tzaddik Liracha, to be their Rav. The Beis HaLevi turned down their bid, but the representatives from Brisk came back to the Beis HaLevi and they made the following statement. They said 25,000 people in Brisk are waiting for you to be their Rav. Will you turn them down? At which point the Beis HaLevi got up and accepted the position and became their Rav. The Chavetz Chaim, when hearing this story, made the following observation. He says, if thousands of Jews would yearn and request Mashiach, surely HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not allow Mashiach to turn them down. If all we had was 25,000 people who are waiting for Mashiach, maybe Mashiach would, in fact, come as well. That's what the Chavetz Chaim said. We move on to the next stage of the Haftarah, which is Psukim Yud Zayin to Chaf Gimel, really the latter half of Perek Yud Nun Aleph in Yeshayahu. In this, we hear words which later on Rav Shlomo Alkabetz will use in the Lachadodi, His oireri, kumi Yerushalayim. Wake up, get up, Yerushalayim. Asher shasis miyad Hashem es kos chamaso. You have drunken the chalice, the cup of anger, is kuba'as koisatarela shasis matzis. And you have sucked dry the cup of bitterness, of poison as well. And it describes that there's no one to look after you. Your children aren't leading you. No one will be able to take care of you. You've suffered twice over. Shtaim hinei koraisayech. And who can help you over here? Your sons lay dying in famine in the anger of Hashem. The city's in poverty, drunk and confused, but not from wine. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu then says, Ka'amar Adonayich Hashem, your master Hashem says, V'lakayach arivamoy, I'm going to fight your battle. I am going to take from your hands this chalice of bitterness, and I'm going to, in fact, return it upon your enemies, give it to the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and you will be able to now spread forth your body and welcome the feet of your children back into your quarters. That is a description to Yerushalayim. Basic points to ponder. What is this kos hatarela, this cup of bitterness? The Dad Mekra explains that in those days, condemned men, people who are guilty of capital crimes, would be forced to drink this kos tarela. What is it, kos tarela? It would be a mixture of alcohol and poison, and that would be their death sentence. It says, Yerushalayim, you have drunken your death sentence. But the sadness in the description over here is that they don't even have anybody to help them get to the bed to lie down peacefully in their suffering. Rather, in fact, they stagger and they fall to the ground because there is no leadership. What a sad description over here. Another important point to note over here is that our Kodesh Baruch Hu is the one, the Almighty is the one giving Yerushalayim this kos tarela, this cup of this chalice of poison. So it's seen as directly meted out. It is punishment from Hashem as well. What's the double suffering that's mentioned over here in our section, which is shtaim heina koresayach? What are we referring to? The Malbim says it refers to the sword on the outside and the sickness on the inside. We're talking about a system, a situation of siege as well. Rashi says, Mi anachamech, who will comfort you? Mi avila lenachamech. Who can I bring you to comfort you? V'lamar af uma ploinius hi laksa dugmosayach. Can there ever be anybody who can comfort you because nobody has been through the suffering that you have been through? You know that in history, Jerusalem has been conquered 44 times. 44 times Yerushalayim has been conquered by different nations. Which other city in the world has been conquered that amount of times that can give comfort? When the old city was captured by the Jordanians in 1948, only a few dozen soldiers were there left protecting it. The Jordanians were so embarrassed that such a small band could inflict such destruction in their defense of the old city that they gathered all the male inhabitants, the regular people, the elderly, the young who are remaining in Yerushalayim, and which was about 300 men, to parade them back into Amman as captives of war, pretending they were soldiers, because how could it be? How could it be that the city was defended by so few? This is Mi Anachamech. Has there ever been any kind of resistance like that? Has there ever been such a situation like that of Yerushalayim? Now moving to the next part of the Haftorah, which is the second parak from Pasuk Aleph to Vav, in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu now says, Uri livshi uzeich Tzion. Tzion, that's Mount Zion, which is the neighboring mountaintop to Har HaMoriah. That's the way the Armenian quarter is built on Har Tzion today. So Tzion, that it's a higher mountain than Har HaBayis. As you go up from the Kotel to the Armenian quarter, which is where Har Tzion is built on. Wake up, where your glory, livshi b'dei sifarteich Yerushalayim ir HaKodesh, where your clothing of splendor. Get up, hisnari me'afar kumi, again words Rav Shlomo Alkabetz will use later on in Lachadodi in addressing Yerushalayim. Wake up from your slumber, get up from the dust, and now make your mark. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to them, you've been sold for nothing and you won't be redeemed for money. Because Hashem says, in Mitzrayim yared ami barishon alagursham, va'ashur be'efes ashakoi. I sent you to Egypt and now you've been oppressed by the Assyrians. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? In the end of the day, I'm going to bring Lachen yadami shemi v'lachen bayamahu ki ani hu hamedaber hineni. You're going to know that I'm going to be there for you. Why? What are the clothes of splendor of Yerushalayim? Where Yeshayahu is describing the prophecy, Jerusalem, wear your clothes of splendor. What are the clothes of splendor, says the Chasam Sofer? It refers to the nation of Israel. Wear your clothes, Yerushalayim. Wear the nation of Israel. Wear the people that should be in you. Not all the other nations that came afterwards because the Jews were there and thought that it was an important place, but rather the Jews themselves, the people who are supposed to be, the Israelites living in Yerushalayim, are your clothes of honor. What does it mean you won't be redeemed for money? So one possibility is you could say, well, the nation of Israel will be so worthless, they'll be not even Redeemable. But the Rav Mendel Hirsch, in his commentaries on the Haftorah, points out is that you will not ever be owned by your captors. Even those who will take you into terrible captivity won't have a claim upon you, and therefore you will not have to be redeemed with money. Lebekesef tigo elo. And finally, the last section of our Torah, running from Pasuk Zayin to Pasuk Yud Beis, is the last description of heralding the return to Tzion, to Zion. Beautiful songs have been made of this. Manavu al heharim ragleim avaser. How beautiful are on the mountaintops are those with the legs, the feet of those who are coming to herald. Mashmiya shalom vaser tov mashmiya Yeshua, to tell the tidings of peace, the tidings of salvation. Omer Tzion, Malach Elokayach. Zion will say that God has ruled. Called Sofayach Noso Kol Hayachdov Yeranenu, and the watch guards, the lookouts will call together as they see Ki Ayin Ba'ayin Yiru B'Shuv Hashem Zion, as they see Hashem returning to Zion. Such beautiful descriptions over here, and it describes how Suru Tzu'umi Sham Tamei Al Tigo, those who are impure will be pushed out of Jerusalem, and only those who deserve to belong will live there. Hashem will gather you in as well. One last question to think about this Haftorah, which I think is very important and central to this Haftorah, is that Yeshayahu is mourning Yerushalayim while Yerushalayim is still standing. Jerusalem is still standing and will be for over a century after this prophecy is given. So why is he talking as if it is destroyed? The first possibility is that during the times of Yeshayahu, Yerushalayim was almost very close to have been captured by the Assyrians. The Assyrians had exiled the northern kingdom of Israel. They had taken a military tour through Judea, capturing 90% of the cities. In fact, you can read the Assyrian account of the capture of Lachish, a brutal massacre, one of the strongholds in Judea, and then they came to encircle Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the only city which survived that military tour, and under the leadership of Chizkiyahu and the spiritual leadership of Yeshayahu, Yerushalayim did not fall. So it could be referring to that oncoming onslaught, and this is the prophecy in which Yeshayahu is telling Yerushalayim that it will survive. This could be why the Mishnah tells us in the end of the 4th parak of Psachim that Chizkiyahu is making the military move to close up the springs outside Yerushalayim and make the tunnel of the water to bring the Mei HaGichon, the Gichon spring, into the Shiloach, the Brecha, the pool of the Shiloach, was inappropriate because Yeshayahu had already said that Yerushalayim would survive. But another option could be is that Yeshayahu is referring to the future. He's referring to the prophecies towards the destruction of the Babylonians of Israel, and he's saying, don't worry, even though there will be a destruction, there will also be a resolution, which also expands us further, and Yeshayahu could be referring not only to the Babylonians, but to the Asid Lava, that Yerushalayim, in fact, will have a future redemption as well, which is why this prophecy is recorded as it is, and why we read it as the Shiva de Nechemta, hoping that we will see this soon in our days. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day and a beautiful Shabbat.